te iwi and welcome to another episode of Playmakers. Now, men's netball hasn't only been helping to progress our international women's team, but netball for everyone all over Aotearoa. And someone who can tell us a little bit more about that and its history is my special guest today, Sarah Michelle Hansen-Vaeau. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I've known you for a pretty long time now, through the netball circles, and knowing that you are very, very passionate about our sport, and you were also a huge part of the first ever Cadbury series with the Silver Ferns. And we will get into all of that, all that cool, exciting stuff. But first, I really want to learn about, you know, how you became passionate and such an advocate for the sport.
It probably goes back to my earliest memory is my mum playing at Monaco Rovers in the car park back in the day. And just seeing everyone come together and enjoy it. It looked like so much fun, it was challenging. And ever since then it was something I wanted to pursue. I dabbled in a couple of other sports, but netball for me ultimately ended up being my safe space and my happy place.
So what do you mean by safe space?
So I had tried league, forced by my father, and I had done volleyball and a couple of other things. And netball was, because it was at the time predominantly female-led, I wasn't the butt of the jokes. I wasn't picked on. It was really inclusive back then of, you know, the sisterhood, which now I understand I didn't at the time. And so for me, it was like going to get away from everything else and just be part of the girls.
Yeah. And I mean, over the years, you've carried on playing, but now you umpire, you coach, you take clinics and, you know, all sorts of things. Why was it important for you to get into those spaces as well as playing?
So I think for me, the reason why I went into coaching and umpiring was kind of like realising that netball was a safe space for me, and wanting to hold that space for others and keep it safe and protected so that they could come to their place of safety and community and enjoy the game that I love, but with all those benefits on top. It was really important for me to, with netball, make sure that people were growing and developing and had a place where they weren't being judged through their identifying who they were. And that's not just part of the rainbow community and trans community. That was just anyone, you know, like come as you are and evolve and change and challenge yourself. And that's, I think, the biggest thing and reason why I still do netball to this day.
Yeah. And I mean, coming through, I mean, you've been in the netball, you know, realm for a few years now. You've been around. But how have you seen things progress? Because obviously when you started playing initially, there wasn't really a spotlight on men's mixed netball. It was all very, as you said, predominantly female. So how have you seen things shift over the years?
I think the awesome thing with netball over the last, not giving away too much, but 2 decades, is that not only has it changed for men's and mixed, but it's also been really good for the women's growth. Like I think back in the day where they used to have to play in the smaller stadiums and we're lucky if they had 100 people watching and didn't need a vivid for autographs because no one actually cared who they were, to see that evolve and to be fortunate enough to be a part of the men's and mixed journey of evolution with the women's side of netball. And then mainly, I think the thing with men's and mixed, especially after that Cadbury series, is the validation, because a lot of people associate with every sport to gender. You know, if you play rugby, you're a bloke. If you play netball, you're a sissy. And so being able to be a part of that evolution where, fortunately for us, I was involved in that first Cadbury series and to put some really amazing athletes, regardless of their genitalia, out in front of people to be respected for their craft and the work that they put in. I think that's been the one of the biggest highlights of the evolution over the last couple of years.
And on court, you know, it was amazing to watch, of course, but it was, you know, quite funny in the build up to it when we would have our conversations about, you know, it's no new thing for those that are in the bubble, but it was for those outside of it, and with it came, you know, criticism, worry, judgment and excitement. So what was the kind of feedback that you saw leading up until, you know, what we see is now a great thing?
Well, funnily enough, the World Cup winning team from the 60s, and I don't want to get the year wrong in case they message me about it, but they stayed at the accommodation with the men's one night in the All-Stars. And we went back and we were having dinner together, and nearly 80% of the team who were like, oh, we're really worried, it's a month out from World Cup, is this going to be... We're just like, that was amazing. And had we not seen it, we wouldn't have known that that could have been the product. So that was really cool to see. You know, like anything, I think because people have a perception of gender roles that it's going to come down to this. The thing about that I love about netball is you can be the biggest person on court. And if you've got the skill in the nous, it doesn't matter. You can be male, female, trans, non-binary, whatever. If you love the game and can find a way around it, you'll play it. And that's the awesome thing about netball is there's no model make players.
Now, in 2019, beginning of 2019, I asked you about helping me to understand things a little bit more and the men's mixed netballing landscape. And we together dropped this article about men's netball not being under the International Netball Federation. It still isn't, but how do you see that perhaps ever coming to fruition?
The awesome thing about where we are now is that the televised opportunity, you can't deny it anymore. You can't say, oh, it's just this little thing that happens in the back of the gym at the start of training for these international teams. It's something that's real, and it's a product that people love. It's something that people are excited about. And I think it's once the change of old guard happens, it's bound to happen, just like anything. You can't, with growth, you can't stay where you are. And the wonderful thing about that series was one night I was sitting in my hotel room, I was getting messages from all over the Pacific, from Canada, from England, from South Africa, countries who I didn't think really knew about netball, who were trying to find the live stream, who would watch the live stream, who were messaging like, this is amazing. And I think it gave their associations a bit of mana, that this is something that we can also draw on. And that's why that first year in particular, it was really important that the product we put out, we wanted to make sure was just stellar, just absolutely stellar netball.
I remember when Junior Levy said in a quote in the article that Australia were actually quite jealous that they didn't think of it first, because it was a really innovative idea. How did that even all come about? So
we all know Dame Nolene Tautua is one of those people that comes along once in a millennia, I think. And she had this outside the box thinking. So her and I, our relationship started when she first became the assistant coach at the Mystics. We knew each other, we didn't have much to do with each other up until that point, and then her and I began to message, and she wanted these players and those players. And I think at first she was a bit worried about what kind of players were coming and are we going to get injured? And I think once we had a full run with the whole men's team that I coached, I think she was just blown away. I don't think she had seen a men's netball product like that before. And fortunately enough, we were able to have a mixed team come in and mix in with the girls and the boys and all of that. And so it's full credit to her because she had to sway a lot of minds, even right up to the week of people coming out saying this is a really bad idea. And just realising, in such a short time before leaving for World Cup, who's going to have our best interests at heart, push us, challenge us, help us prepare for World Cup without malice and, because netball, there can be some contact now and then. I think she wanted people that were going to be there to test the ferns to the best of their ability. And it hands down wouldn't have happened without Dame Nolene.
Yeah. Leading up to that Cadbury series, you were the coach of the men's netball team that defeated the Silver Ferns in that initial Cadbury series, sorry. What kind of, conversations did you perhaps have with the team? Being the inaugural, being, the first of its kind that copped a lot of criticism, did you feel like perhaps a responsibility to keep everyone emotionally safe?
No. And the reason being is because a lot of the team, and they can identify how they want, but a lot of the team are either part of the LGBTQIA plus community or allies and real good allies. And so that's something that they walk with every day, and it's kind of a non-speaking topic. Like, it's something that, as a trans woman, I leave the door, I take on the world every day. And it's something that just becomes part of our makeup and being resilient. So it wasn't something that we spoke to. That was more around the structure and what the product that we wanted to put out. But no, there definitely wasn't an emphasis on players and how they were to conduct themselves or reactions to what may come.
Yeah, I love that. And not surprised at all. For you in your journey, though, I mean, the Cadbury series, you know, was a huge pinnacle for your netballing career and what you're doing with your netball stuff now. But when did it all start? Because you talk about knowing Nolene back in the Mystics days. When were you first able to be preparing, you know, not only ANZ Championship, Premiership teams, but also the Silver Ferns?
So it started for me, I think my first memory of Ferns was 03.
That's a long time ago.
I think I might have been 2.
Look how long this has been happening, Aotearoa.
I was picked up by one of the top players in Auckland at the time from school. I got permission from the school to leave to go to the Silver Ferns camp and play them before they flew out. So that's my first and earliest memory of being involved with the Silver Ferns, and been blessed enough to be a part of every coach since.
Who was the coach?
That was Ruth Aitken. Yeah, and I think I did have some stuff to do with Yvonne's force team at the time. Auckland Diamonds, we would drive down to play the Magic. Like, because it was such short supply, our core group of players were willing to travel anywhere to play netball.
Yeah, I bet. And to get that, I mean, it would be one. Did you think about perceptions and things back then? Because obviously you talk about it being in 03. There were no cameras around. There was no one documenting this stuff. So, I mean, now it's a little bit different. But what was it like, and how receptive were players back then? Or has it always just been this normal?
For the players that are involved, and this goes right back to the old days of people that have passed, it's normal. And that's why when people are like, oh, you play the Silver Ferns, it's kind of like, yeah, we're friends. Like, it's kind of normal. Yeah, like, get invited to every camp. And I think that's why men's and mixed netball has been blessed enough to come forward, actually, as those girls who have come through our pathways to the Silver Ferns or have benefited from playing the players who aren't shy and don't shy away from saying, look, we play these players and it's amazing. And the most wonderful thing, I think, was that Cadbury series in 2019 was, regardless of what was happening, the camaraderie between the teams and the acknowledgement of different people and how they identified, you know, the very few conversations we did, because we tried to keep it as much like World Cup as possible and not be in each other's camps. But the very few conversations we did, the girls were very respectful. You know, I never once felt, coached half of them, but I've never once felt in that Cadbury series that my who I am as a person was ever an issue. You know, the girls were so wonderful. Nolene and Debs were fantastic, and probably one of the few times in a proper netball gig, having done a few things over the years, that I actually felt like I didn't have to justify who I was as a person, and I didn't have to try and hold space for me. It was just given, and that was a beautiful thing about that series.
Like you said, just being there based on skill, technique, and knowing that you really deserve to be there. It doesn't matter what you look like or what your preferences outside.
No. Because yes, I have applied for some roles around the world, and some countries. I mean, the sad thing about it being Pride Month is that some countries just don't acknowledge. Like, I was shortlisted for a nation. I'm not going to say which one, obviously. And everything went really well, the interview and everything. And then they came back and said, "Oh, look, we're probably not going to go with you because we're funded by the government and we do not believe in transgender," which was, you know, kind of. You build up a guard at a certain point and it just becomes like, okay, cool, I feel really sorry for you that you don't understand that my genitalia or my identification has nothing to do with my ability. We don't coach naked.
Yeah.
You know, like that was my first thing. Like, was I flying over to coach naked? Like that threw me. And then secondly, like, oh, you know, you're going to go through this through your life, not understanding the beautiful diversity of people, just people, regardless of how they identify, just understanding that different ways of thinking and different ways of living is healthy. It challenges you, or it reaffirms what you know. So yeah, those kind of things can be soul destroying if you allow them to. But like I said, you know, me as a trans woman in the rainbow community, we often build up resilience and are able to tackle those things in ways that other people probably would really struggle with.
Thinking about where transgender communities lie in each country's, you know, you kind of think, you know, oh, that country's progressing, or that one's like, oh, that's going to take a while, or, you know, things like how you had your job application and they weren't really accepting of it. But how important is it to you to normalise it? I know it's normal for you and for the family around you and your community, but obviously you do know that there is a reach out there that still haven't come to the party.
Absolutely, and that's why I think in my coaching and in my coaching and in netball, I think the biggest thing for me is to normalise. I don't like it being a talking point because it's just who I am. It's part and parcel. Like, if you want the great results, you're going to get Michelle, hand in hand. But no, I'm not disillusioned to the fact that it is helping pave the way. And yeah, like, so many countries are so far behind, but hopefully when the girls see, or the communities see, that I'm able to hold this space internationally, and they can use that as kind of like a platform to bounce off and then go and do greater things than I think I'm doing. Because I just, you know, I'm a great coach, but I really don't like doing media. You already know this. And so they can elevate and take all the television time.
Yeah.
And I can just sit on social media and watch.
Maybe you can coach them there too.
Yes.
Mitchie, you are one part of a huge community here in New Zealand, and obviously it is Pride Month, and it is, you know, a time dedicated, which has grown. Obviously, we were just talking about how I thought it used to be a week. You said it used to be a 3-day thing, and now it's turned into a month. So, you know, being transgender in sport aside, how have you seen, you know, it being accepted in general and celebrated?
So obviously I do a lot of advocacy with the community, and the change has been surreal. Like, growing up and transitioning at such a young age, I never thought we would get to the place that we are now, and we are miles off where we need to be, like light years away, but the movement itself has just changed so much. Like, back in the day, as trans women, you would only be associated with being seen at night, and that wasn't because of your occupation. That was just because that was the only time it was safe to come out and congregate. Now you see these beautiful mana wahine, whawhawhine, whakaleiti, who are out in gowns midday, and I love, who are in stilettos to the ceiling, and I don't think that would have happened without being in New Zealand, because we are truly blessed to live in this country. We are at the melting pot of the Pacific, and I'm so blessed that we understand that. And B, I think, you know, the girls that have come through, you know, like, I pay homage to Mama Tere and Carmen Rupe, who are two of my aunties from when I was a youngster, and seeing their struggles. And yes, I've got struggles and have had struggles, and my journey is going to be hard, but we bear that for the next generation to go through less, and the generation after that to go through less, till one day it's just completely normal, and we're all celebrated for just being us, for being people.
Yeah. So what are your plans for the month? Obviously it's a special, you know, it's extra special. So how do you...
So for the first time in Pride, there will be a trans group of just exciting talent who will be leading the Pride Parade. Obviously, we'll be going to a whole lot of the events like drag bingo and there's a whole lot of artists who have been invited in by proud centres who are doing a whole lot of shows, which I'm really excited to go and see, because some of them are fun and lighthearted, and some of them are really deep and delving, and you're going to need tissues and eyelash glue for when they come off afterwards. But no, I'm just excited to go out and celebrate the whole month. And, you know, Pride Month is probably more for those who feel they need the manaki, feel that they need the awhi. Every day is Pride Day for me. So it doesn't bother me.
Yeah. But what is it like, though, when, you know, you're living your everyday life with, you know, doing your everyday thing, and then when it comes to this time and everyone comes together, like you say, during the day and night,
Yes.
and I mean, you must get something out of being able to have those common conversations with them.
Yeah, or it might be a bit of tokenism in jumping on the Pride Month. And being around for as long as I have, I do realise the difference between true allies and buzz hunters, is what we call them in the community. But no, the good thing about it is at least it opens dialogue for people to ask questions, or for the community to say, hey, look, it's Pride Month, this is the issues. Like at the moment, the Cook Islands are going through trying to do law reform, because at the moment it's like the 1986 law here. It's illegal and against the law to have same-sex relations, regardless of whether you're gay or trans. And so that's going to be the biggest plug that we'll be doing this week, is Park Cookie is trying to promote the need to send a message to the Cook Islands that that's not acceptable, that we won't tolerate it, and to test those who are allies and whether they're actually on board, or whether it's just, like I said, tokenism for the Pride Month, which is, I mean, like anything, you know, regardless of the event or the historical landmark, you find people ride the wave, and when the wave gets too rough, you see who jumps on and jumps off and who stays on. So be interesting.
Good on you. Good on you. Now, it's a bit of a busy time for you. You've got this exciting, you know, all these exciting things coming up, but that's not to say that netball takes a back seat. You've taken on a new little adventure with netball as well. So tell us a bit about that.
Yes, so obviously I'm still doing my coaching clinics and just helping in the community where I can. But one of our good friends has recently moved back to Australia, and he's started what's called NetSweat program, which is just like, having been involved in netball and mostly high performance, this is so much fun. It's just people getting together, throwing the ball around, doing drills. I mean, last week one of the ladies was giving a gift, so at the end of training we sat and we were weaving harakeke flowers to put in a vase.
Nice.
It's just that community, that sense of community, and it's really nice that I'll be taking the New Zealand side of it over, because I'm not letting him off, he's going to Australia to run it, the NetSweat program. But to be able to have that community, share what I love, share the game of netball, but also have some laughs along the way, is probably the most exciting thing about delivering that program. Then obviously I've got to have a look at whether I get Cadbury again this year or not. So do I. And seeing what else pops up with no international travel. It's a bit hard.
That is tricky.
But that's cool. I do miss coaching my clinics in Australia, so fingers crossed the border's open.
Well, the plus side to this is that we're not going to miss any of your coaching, you know, moving forward, and hopefully I've been to one of our friend Nico's clinics in the past, really loved it, so hopefully I get the chance to come in.
Well, I will be hounding you.
Good, do it. But Mitchie, thank you so much for sharing your story. I know it takes a lot for you to even walk in the door and be trusting with your story, so thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you for having me. If it was anyone else, it would be like, oh, here's some names, but you already know, true allies are hard to find, and I truly do thank you for always being an ally and always having my back.